Hey everyone, Tactics here with a highly requested post-nerf revisit to Mythic Farok. This fight has seen some pretty significant changes since my guide video actually came out, so I'll be covering the main strategy adjustments that those nerfs have caused, but I will not be doing just a full new in-depth guide since my older guide video does still kind of cover pretty much everything except the specific things I'm going to cover in this video, and I don't really want to record another hour-long video, so I'm not going to do that. I will link that one down in the description though for you if you want to see kind of the rest of the strategy for the boss fight. But first, let's just get into this and let's talk about the nerfs specifically. So a flame targets, that is the magic debuff that goes out. It's down from 4 to 3. This is going to be pretty nice for phase or the early phases of the boss fight. It means you're going to be less likely to actually be overwhelmed by those dispels, and in general the average like stat count is probably going to go down because you're going to have an extra magic dispel essentially to kind of cover anyone maybe missing a dispel or things like that, which is going to be really nice. Health reduced by 10%. This is a pretty big nerf. Has substantial impacts on the first phase, the last phase, and the intermission, which we'll go over. Burning and Dark Colossus health, 10% nerf there. Makes it easier to meet the DPS check in phase 2. Spirit of Kaldari and Darnation Ancient health reduced by 20%. Makes it easier to get the healing check and add healing in P2. The Heart of Amirdrasil begins health with 60% in stage 2. I'll go over that when we get to phase 2. And then down to 1 Corrupted Seed instead of 2, which is massive nerf to that final phase. Now I have a post-nerf kill here just to kind of walk you through it. Main thing, if we're talking about phase 1, outside of the flame magic dispel reduction, the thing you want to be aware of is the health reduction. So if you see going towards our end of P1 here, boss health goes pretty significantly lower, such that you're pushing significantly faster. You can see boss here, this is just before the second Dream Rend, and we're already at 73%, and something that we are 19 manning this, and we are not potting on pull. And the reason for that is so that we can push during the tank frontals immediately after the second Dream Rend. That's what we do as a group that has learned the entire kind of coordination of this fight after this. What you could potentially be doing if you're getting this fight for the first time or recently, potentially if you have the damage to push before this Dream Rend as a 20-man group, potentially even potting on pull to meet that DPS check, not having to learn the whole second Dream Rend dance into the frontals and firestorms, potentially could save you a lot of wipes, but the blaze as well, which is quite dangerous there. So if you have the damage to hit that DPS check and push before the second Dream Rend, it could be worthwhile. If you don't quite have the damage here, you're going to see we're basically going to be holding DPS throughout the second Dream Rend, because the boss is about to push, and we want to push with the tank frontals here in 8 seconds. So this blaze line here is pretty dangerous, so we don't get to skip that, unfortunately, but we do push during this blaze, or not this blaze, sorry, this frontal here. And this frontal is weird. So I don't know exactly what causes it, but basically like half the time, if you push during this frontal cast, like we're going to do, he will then chain Firestorm. He'll spell Q Firestorm. So you will get the whole duration of Firestorm as well as a milk. So you get 50% chance. I don't know what the actual percent chance is, but you get some percent chance to get a Giga Milk on the boss health here. And otherwise, what's going to happen is what happened here for us. He insta-push to Incarnate instead. So not sure what exactly triggers it, because we always kind of choose to push there. And sometimes you get the Giga Milk and sometimes you don't. It is what it is. But, just something to note there. But again, like I said, that's kind of your two options now, is to push where we did right there. Or if you have the damage or 20 manning and potentially using pots on pull, you can push before the Dream Rend if that's a DPS check you can make. What we do now, as you see, we're all potting during this milk. So we have the entire raid basically pot during this milk. You see I just potted there, and that'll roll pots into the intermission, which is helps us to defeat that shield. But also the health nerf has reduced the size of that intermission shield as well, so that DPS check is a bit smaller on top of the other change, actually, which wasn't mentioned in those notes. What came, I think, a week before maybe, where this is no longer a private aura. So the debuffs in this phase previously, when my first guide came out, it was a private aura. So you had to press a macro. I still have that weak aura, probably should get rid of it. But you still have that macro, you'd press it. If you were red, whatever. Those have been updated, those weak auras, so you now don't need to press a macro whatsoever. And this was an intended change, unlike Smolderon. So completely intended, not going to be fixed by Blizzard. They removed the private aura aspect of these debuffs, and they're now just regular debuffs, so weak auras can read them. And so you really want to make sure you are on the most up-to-date version, and everyone is on the same version of the Liquid Weak Aura. I believe as of the release of this video, the version is 1.0.18, which is the 19th version for the Liquid Weak Aura, if that's the one you're using. And that one in particular is very good to have, because it will still accurately assign positions, even if someone is dead. So it'll still auto-assign you the correct place if someone in your group is dead, which of course we do have a dead person here since we're 19 manning. So that is really good to be on that specific version. It'll just make things a whole lot easier, because again, early in progression, you're going to get there. You're probably going to have a few people dead, and this will still accurately assign it. And I go over how to actually do the note for that weak aura, I believe, in my other guide video. So check that out if you're still, if you want to learn about that. But that is it. Outside of that, again, the health reduction means this corruption shield is smaller. So you will push this phase way quicker. Like we push this phase immediately after the immune soaks basically now. So it's way faster. Look how much time we still have like a quarter of our time when we push here. Boom. Yeah. So lots of time there to now push this phase, which is nice. Phase 2. So the thing you're looking for here for what this phase starts at is when we push, you're going to see the Heart of Immersive Health goes to 60%, and then it starts ticking down. So that's kind of what the phase difference is. If you look at what it used to be, I think it was around 53%-ish is what it was. So it's a little bit lower or higher rather than it was. And what that actually means is it gives you a bit more leeway in terms of ad healing and blazing in this phase. So some strategies that I still recommend using: Mark of the Wild on the trees. I think that's an easy thing to do, and that buys you even more leeway with this change. Something you won't need to do is like things like life grips and rescues and stuff like that to get trees into the actual heart in time. You no longer really need to do that, which is pretty nice. And it also lets you blaze a couple more Spirits of Kaldorei by accident, or even an entire tree and some Spirits of Kaldorei as well. So basically just gives you some leeway. Still recommend using Heart of the Wild, or not Heart of the Wild, sorry, Mark of the Wild, the raid buff on the trees, just so they heal for a little bit more. But otherwise, it just gives you some more room to mess up the blazes and hit some ads by accident in this phase, which is nice because, you know, it's something that lower ranked deals are probably going to do a fair bit. Health nerf on the Colossuses just makes it a little bit easier to beat the actual, not this cast of cages, but the actual activation of the cages is what you need to beat on killing the Burning Colossus. 10% less health makes it way easier to beat that check, and also 10% less on the Dark Colossus as well makes it way easier to kill that ad before the exploding core goes off. So just some easier things to check in general. And like I mentioned, the ads are lower health as well. They still heal the tree for the same amount, so don't worry about that, but they're just easier for healers to actually top things, get back to the raid faster, and actually help with you know, healing them. And also it definitely lessens the need to have a Mistweaver in the group to really focus those trees and heal them up ASAP. So gives you some more flexibility in your healing comp, which is definitely nice. Now, last thing, P3. So with the 10% health nerf now, let's fast forward a little bit here. With the 10% health nerf, basically, you should be killing this boss very early. You should never get the 4th APOC Roar if you have people alive. And so what you can do to make the rest of the phase easier is you can actually drop 2 friendly seeds on the first APOC Roar just on top of each other, and that just gets 1 seed out of the fight. So that's 1 less person holding a seed for the remainder of the fight that you need to worry about getting blazed or something like that. So it really opens up your positioning a little bit more by doing that. Obviously, you then have to beat the 4th APOC Roar, but you should be able to comfortably do that for sure, assuming you have players alive. So I think it's worth it. Obviously, check your DPS. Sometimes if you have really good DPS, you can actually beat the 3rd APOC Roar, which is crazy. I don't recommend dropping 3 seeds early on, but I think dropping 2 seeds is relatively safe and honestly makes the phase a bit easier overall, but it does push up that enrage timer a little bit. Now, outside of that, you do have the corrupted seed change, which is pretty big here. You're only going to have 3 of these corrupted seeds over the course of the fight now, because again, you're killing before the 4th APOC roar. So you only have, 1 per phase or per APOC roar cast. It's not based on seed drops, it's based on APOC roar cast. So even if you are dropping 2 seeds on the first APOC roar, you only get 1 corrupted seed, so no need to worry about that. In terms of who you're assigning to, because you're only getting 3 of these, you really want to make sure these are on like good, reliable players in your raid group. So really class doesn't matter, whatever doesn't matter. One thing to note, you do want to pair probably for the first seed specifically. We did it on tanks here because again, tanks are used to doing it in the original strategy for this fight. So I'm taking the boss here, the other tank's gonna go grab the 1 corrupted seed, and then from there you can kind of choose what you want to do. Basically, whoever's picking up the 2nd corrupted seed, you can either choose to do a pair again for that 2nd corrupted seed, or you can choose to put that on someone who is fairly tanky and just never have them swap. Obviously, the benefit is they never need to do a pass off, which is where, danger is in terms of, maybe you pass during a swirlies and the swirlies hit it, or blaze or whatever. But having that be just an individual person, means that they don't need to think as much about that. Only one person needs to learn the seed carrying stuff, makes it easier to avoid other players. But obviously the downside is when they start getting to the end of the fight, after the 3rd APOC roar, they're going to be taking a lot of ticking damage from that actual seed. So if they're able to survive that, you have spare externals you can give those people. It can be very good to just have a single person on that, but also not the end of the world if you put 2 people on that. There's kind of a pros and cons to each. For the 3rd seed that spawns after the 3rd APOC roar, just assign 1 person to that, because again, you're going to be killing before the 4th APOC roar, so there's no need to swap that seed ever for any circumstance. So really the number of people you need assigned to corrupted seed has gone down to 5 at the very most, which is super nice. And you can even drop that down to potentially 3, depending on how fast you kill the boss as well. So overall, definitely a massive difficulty decrease in this final phase, which was needed for sure. And overall, that's just kind of the most of the changes, I think all the changes that the recent nerfs have had on the strategy for this boss. As a reminder, if you're looking for the full in-depth guide to this boss, everything I didn't cover in this video, it still applies to the rest of the boss fight. I'll link that video down in the description for those that want it. Otherwise, hopefully this video helps you guys out in your progression. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and of course all you viewers as well, for supporting the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.